The body is our messenger. Our bodies are always communicating with us through our symptoms, our aches, our pains, our tension, our illnesses. They carry a message. So we've called this episode The Body as a Messenger. What is this illness asking of you? And we're going to also bring to you, how do you uncover what the body is telling you? So the body has wisdom, and the body knows stuff we don't know, actually, because a lot of what plays out in our bodies is unconscious stuff which we're unaware of. So starting to deeply connect with your body, not just through green juice or meditation or exercise, but to really feel into and honor the symptoms that are coming your way, whether it's just a tension in your neck and shoulders, or a acid reflux, or particularly if it's a brutal cancer diagnosis or autoimmune diagnosis, or even if it's raging anxiety and mental stuff. The first step towards lasting well-being, and it's absolutely critical if you're sick, if you really are sick, is to listen to the wisdom and the messages of the body. Because your body, if you start doing that, you can start playing a role in your own healing. Okay, we're going to unpack that a bit more. Physical symptoms very often mirror our inner world. And this has come out strongly now in psychoneuroimmunology research. We weave it into our episodes all the time. There are books out there that I'll put in the show notes. When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate. The Body Keeps the Score. I can't remember the author. This is becoming more and more mainstream, but it's not mainstream. So that's why Loretta and I go on about it all the time. But what we haven't brought is exactly how to do this and how critical it is. So our physical symptoms mirror our inner world, and we can use this awareness to help ourselves heal and also to restore balance and vitality in our lives in general. Every single ache, pain, chronic condition can be a signal that something within needs to be looked at or is out of alignment. So modern medicine, alternative healing, focusing on your symptoms through food, supplements, etc. We're not saying you shouldn't do that. But together with that, healing requires looking deeper and asking yourself, what is my body trying to tell me? Our bodies are more than just physical vessels. They are deeply connected to our emotions, thoughts, and our spiritual well-being. So when illness arises, it's not just a physical inconvenience. It can be a message from your soul and your unconscious asking you to pay attention to an imbalance that needs healing. Now, I'm a person, as everybody knows, I had a brutal stage 4 galloping cancer in 2017. And I did a number of different things to help myself heal, become my own healer from the inside out. But one of the most important things I did, if I reflect back, is I started deeply connecting with my body and the cancerous tumors at the top of my neck and what was going on in my body, and asking my body, what do you need to tell me? Is there anything I need to know? Is there any way or anything I can do to help this heal? So I never once, by the way, this is not about blaming yourself, as Loretta and I always say. So I had a cancerous tumor sitting at the top here while I was on chemo. So I did do the doctors and the external stuff, and I did energy work, healers and all that. But I knew I had to play a role in my own healing. So I started a daily practice and I didn't really know what to do in the beginning. The main thing is just to start and know that you have more power than you have any idea. And my body started giving me the most extraordinary messages when I started asking, like this tumor here underneath my ear, which is quite scary because it's close to the brain and the spine. And it came back with all kinds of information for me. I don't think the details are important, but actually about a reflection of some past trauma. And it wasn't in a dramatic way, but it kind of also unfolded a vision of just started doing its own thing. And I never once said, oh, I was responsible for this cancer or I caused it. I lived in an area where they were bombing chemical sprays on the grass, and I lived opposite a dairy farm. And I used to cycle there, and this kind of cancer can be triggered by Roundup and stuff. I'd been in Peru the year before. I could have picked up a very bad virus. It can be virally triggered. But I knew, even if those had been factors, that I needed to figure out the message in these symptoms, the message in this illness. How had I got sick on that healthy lifestyle? And what could I do to help myself heal? Not to blame myself, not to not do anything else. So I really went quite deep into a journey of doing this work. And I'm going to tell you what I did, but I think Loretta also wants to bring some of her own tools and what she uses with her patients. But just to end off this beginning section, to just reiterate again, the body, when it goes into dis-ease, is its way of communicating unaddressed emotional, energetic, unconscious stuff or spiritual blockages. So, starting to interpret these messages, we can start a journey not to heal the symptoms, but the root cause of the illness. And that actually becomes a journey of healing your life and even of sacred training. It's changed my whole life starting to do this. So, it starts with this knowledge. So, it starts even if you've never heard this before and a part of you is going, this is ridiculous, or how do I do it? And I'm just going to go to the doctor and I'm going to take that pill. And if you think you've got this taped, just give us a little bit of airtime and airtime, because you might be surprised what your body can bring to you. Loretta, do you want to chip in?
Sure. So I think that, as Antoinette was speaking about, so, you can ask your body and you can connect to the tumor. I think many people, and certainly if I was listening to this maybe 5, 10 years ago, I'd be like, well, that's all good and well, but she obviously has some sort of intuition. She has some sort of gift, or, maybe she's like incredibly spiritual. So that's why it's easy for her, but it's impossible for me. So I want to start off with saying that everyone has the capability of doing this. But like anything, it takes some practice. And you know what? For some people, it's going to be easier because they have sort of, I don't know, just less restriction in terms of being able to connect. And for some of us, it's going to be a little bit harder. So I'm one of the ones that it's a bit harder for. All right. And so just know though that it's an innate ability, because basically whether you believe that it's God that's speaking to you, or whether you believe that it's your intuition that's speaking to you, or whether you believe it's the actual tumor that's speaking to you, or whether you believe it's your body that's speaking to you, it doesn't matter. John DeMartini, a teacher of mine, said that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. And so the one thing that we need to know is, if we don't ask, we're never going to get. It's ask and you shall receive. I always used to think that sort of was about material things. But you know what? When you ask a question, if you want an answer, you have to ask the question, because asking the question essentially starts setting the intention out there for you to become receptive to receive the answer. And the other thing I want you to know is sometimes no answer is an answer in itself. And you don't, so I always used to think, and I've said this before, I always used to think that in order to be like really intuitive, you have to have these like burning bush moments, or, the angel has to appear, or the whatever. And I've never had that happen. But what I've realized is that that is not necessary. The problem for many of us is that that voice, that inner voice, we haven't trained ourselves to listen to it. There's so much clamor outside that unless we create space for ourselves to become still and we create that quiet, and you know what? Disease often forces us into that. Because when you are faced with life or death, whether this is short-term life or death or long-term life or death, but when you come up against that reality, the disease itself forces you, or sometimes even the treatment. I've seen this with a lot of people who have chemo, the chemo, because chemo, it can be so brutal. And I'm not saying it's not necessary, but sometimes if the disease is not enough to bring you to that place of like literally to your knees, the treatment brings you to your knees. And it brings you to a place where it forces you, it gives you the opportunity. When I say forces you, it gives you the opportunity, it brings you to that sticking post where you now have the opportunity to start asking the questions. So just as Antoinette said, we're not suggesting you don't get a diagnosis. We're not suggesting you do a particular type of treatment. What we are actually saying is that when you can do all of those things, but this is another aspect of it. So first of all, we all have the ability to do this. Some of us need a bit more guidance. Some of us need someone to help us, and some of us do it more easily than others. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it. All right. That's the first thing. The second thing is about this whole thing about disease as a messenger. And, as I was thinking about this is another little gem that I got from Dr. John Demartini. And he said that, and I'm paraphrasing now, please. Okay. So if I'm not saying it exactly as he said it, please don't crucify me. But basically, God, the universe, the grand design is always trying to get us into alignment with our most authentic, expressive self. And there are feedback mechanisms that have been built into this design that help us do that. And the first one is your physiology. So when you need to, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. When you are needing to shift or change or get a different perspective, very often your physiology is the first thing that's going to give you the message. So let's just say that you are overworking, you're burning the candle at both ends, you're not being able to look after yourself, you've got dreadful deadlines, you're really, really stressed, and so you get flu. Now, flu's not going to kill you. But flu stops you in your tracks. If it's really bad, you've got the body pain and the fever. It doesn't matter how much you want to do what you want to do, babe. You've basically got to go to bed, all right? And so we know it's like it's forcing the rest onto us. So one of the first questions you can ask yourself that doesn't require deep introspection is, what is this forcing me to do? What are these symptoms forcing me to do? You might not be wanting to do that. You might be kicking and screaming, but what's it forcing me to do? Because that's part of the message inherent in the symptoms. Okay, so the first thing is your physiology. He said, Dr. Demartini, back to him. He said, if you ignore the symptoms of your physiology, or if it's not purely physiological, and because most of us, we're very good at connecting to our thoughts, but we're really not that good at connecting to how does my body feel, because we just push through that very often. The next thing is your psychology is going to start becoming involved. So imagine now you've got flu, but you recover from the flu after 3 days. You get out of bed, you catch up on all the stuff, but now every 4 to 6 weeks you're getting flu, and it's really getting you down. That's your psychology. Your psychology is now saying, babe, we got to do something, okay? And if you ignore that and you're getting sick every 4 weeks, your sociology, your boss goes, you cannot be sick for 3 days every 4 weeks. What the hell is going on with you? Or your family goes, what the hell is going on with you? You need to start looking after yourself better. That's your sociology. And when we ignore that, then the cosmology, that's basically like the pawpaw hits the fan, right? Someone bigger than us steps in, and then very often there's some sort of external crisis. So think about this. You're getting sick repeatedly. You're still trying to do everything you've ever done. You don't feel good. Like your mood is dreadful. Your friends and your family are constantly on your case, okay? And so you're sleep deprived, you're sick, you're not focusing, da 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 da, and you forget to turn the stove off, or there's a gas leak that you don't know about, and boom, your house burns down. I mean, please let your house not burn down. I'm trying to be dramatic here. But your house burns down. That's cosmology. That's like shit happens, literally. All right. And so, again, this is not an indictment. So, if you don't have physical symptoms, but you have psychological symptoms, it's not necessarily that you've ignored your physical symptoms. But what you may have ignored is that your emotions express themselves in your body. And you may have been pushing down uncomfortable emotions, which has now caused an emotional or mental kind of flare up, right? So, and maybe, I don't know, maybe something does happen. You're in a car accident, or your house gets burgled because you forgot to turn on the security, for example, right? This doesn't mean that you're a bad person, but it does give you an opportunity to ask, where have I
Mhm.
potentially been overlooking stuff? Anything. So, not where have I been a terrible human being, just where have I not been seeing the signs? That's the question. Soon as you start asking the question, the answers are going to start coming. So if you find it difficult to connect to your body and you're getting, well, I'm not getting any answers from my body, just start asking yourself a couple of questions about general things
Mhm.
that have happened, right? What could I have been missing here? Not so that you can interrogate yourself and self-flagellate, just so that you can start practicing to start actually getting the message. Another really simple thing is, what's your language? We have so much beautiful language around symptoms that are hugely useful. So if you've got a bladder infection, it burns, right? I mean, it's like peeing razor blades sometimes. It can be that painful. So I'm like, well, like you've got this burning urine, but we have and this is a term where we talk about being pissed off. Or, in America, they say pissed is like a term for being really angry about something or someone. Now, you might not find all the answers to your chronic bladder infections in there, but it's a way to start. I can't stomach something. So you got chronic reflux. Ask yourself, what is it in my life that I'm struggling to stomach? Because we have terms like that. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Mhm.
And now, of course, I can't
Mhm.
think of all of them, but there are lots of them actually. When we start thinking about, I can't stomach this, this is really like, it's really burning. It's like, it's burning my butt. What is burning your butt? So if you've got hemorrhoids that are incredibly painful, what is burning your butt? So ask yourself those questions. Because again, you're not going to get the whole answer. You might not get a complete download. You might not get the whole answer to what you've got to do next, but it's going to give you a starting point. And the more you start asking those questions, the more likely you are to start getting answers. And if you don't get an answer today, so you know what? I've sent someone a mail. They don't reply today. They don't reply tomorrow. So I send another email and I go, excuse me, da da da. I sent an email 2 days ago, right? So it's the same thing. It's about practice and it's about your intention. So you might go, oh, well, this is a lot of hogwash, but I'm going to try it anyway. Just try it. Ask the question. And the last thing I want to say about this, sorry, Antoinette, the last
No,
thing I
no,
want to
no.
say about
Mhm.
this is that your signs and your symptoms, whether they're mental, whether they're emotional, whether they're physical, they cause suffering when we make them mean something about us. So, in other words, if you get the flu because you've been burning the candle at both ends, and then you make it mean that you're a bad person because you're not looking after yourself and you should be taking better care of yourself, and da 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 da. Okay, that's not actually what we want you to do. What I would love you to do is to just imagine it's like the GPS that says you wanted to go to place A. You've taken a turn, you've ended up in place B because you've taken this off ramp or you've taken this road. That's all it means. So when you take the wrong directions, well, the directions that take you to where you don't want to go, you just put in your current location. Where am I right now? Where I don't want to be, and I'm having X, Y, and Z. That's where I am right now. Or where do I want to go? Well, I actually want to go somewhere else. Okay. That's what the signs and the symptoms are. They're like a GPS, just trying to get your attention. So the less you can make them mean anything about you, this is almost impossible. I just want to tell you, this is very hard. But the less you can make them mean anything about you, the clearer it's going to be for you to see the way forward.
Yeah,
Antoinette.
and I think Loretta would say this even more than me, but just be precautionary of just medicating them away. It's our societal quick fix is to go to an expert, whether it's a homeopath or a doctor. I know from my past, and you take some supplement or you do something and it's going to sort it out. So, yeah. And it undoubtedly takes just consistency and practice, actually. But that's beautiful what Dee Martini said is just start making inquiry. So I just recalled now, yeah, by the way, just to throw in as I have before, I ended up on chemo after not touching allopathic medicine for 32 years. And in hindsight, the very reason I had to do that, Loretta, is because it forced me to stop. I was the green juicer, vitamin popper, etc. I would have fasted for 3 months to get rid of my cancer, but I wouldn't have stopped. I wouldn't have stopped helping, working, rescuing, and chemo just stopped me, got me on the floor as sick as a dog. And when I go over the bitterness and resentment and anger of that, I'm like, well, why is this happening? And the gift in it was I would not have stopped, and I'm not sure I would have survived because part of what illness brings to us is where are you not drawing personal boundaries? Where are you maybe not asking for help? Are you living your passion and purpose, Antoinette? Um, have you got self-care boundaries that you're not maintaining for yourself? So I was doing green juice, eating healthy, exercising, yoga, but let me tell you, I was one of the most disconnected people from my body and my inner self and psyche. And I wasn't self-caring in so many other ways. I couldn't draw boundaries and say no. I was a people pleaser. I couldn't ask for assistance. I was always out there helping others, rescuing. I defined myself by that unconsciously. And I also realized it took me quite a few months that I was deeply disconnected from my true purpose. From I wasn't in alignment with my soul's purpose, and I was actually exceptionally stuck and unfulfilled. But I had a very successful business that was bringing in a lot of money, and I was going to give myself another 5 years so I'd have enough money to grow old and ha ha ha. Where wasn't I expressing my truth? I mean, I uncovered all kinds of things from absolutism to distorted belief systems. So it can be anything from telling us to slow down to realigning with our higher selves. But as Loretta said, what's very important to know now, I'd been on a spiritual and self help path for 30 years. I was deep into all this mind body stuff. And two reflections I want to make from my own personal journey is A, be very careful of not using very superficial mind body connection stuff, actually. I'm not saying that stuff out there isn't necessarily right, but I would precaution you from Googling what is the
Mm,
symptom of my acid reflux or going back. Louise Hay is amazing and she started this revolution, and that's the very first book I reread when I got cancer, How to Heal Yourself. And it was good, but the whole mind body science, mind body emotion has just gone so much further than that. So I'm not saying don't do that, but there's so much amazing stuff out there in psychoneuroimmunology and neuroscience and neuropsychology and all kinds of areas. And actually, I just want to quickly finish. I read a Brandon Base. Actually, I went back to the Brandon Base book where she comes up with that little visualization when you start speeding through your body or you walk through your body with someone and you stop in the organ where the cancer is or whatever, and you ask it what color it is and shape it is and what it's saying to you. And let me tell you something. That's how I started. And me, after 30 years on this path, I was like, what a crock of shit.
Mm,
I
mm.
cannot feel a thing there in that tumor. My mind is racing. I don't know what blooming color it is. This is ridiculous. But as Loretta says, when you are that desperate, stage four galloping cancer, yeah, by your brain and your spine, you do every single day. I showed up to do that and to do
Mm.
it and repeat it. And what I can tell you is this: when it feels like it's not working, when it feels like nothing's happening, you just do it anyway. And you do it again the next day, and you do it again the next day. And eventually it starts like, oh wow, look what my body just told me. Or today my body's intuitively telling me to do this rather. The most important thing is that you start. I'm sure Loretta will be agreed. And
100%.
you consistent in your practice because your body knows that you're trying, and at some point you will never get it straight away. I think it's exceptionally rare.
100. True, true, true,
Sorry,
true. And
Loretta, I
every
had
time
to
you
get
show
that
up,
out.
no, just further to what Antoinette just said, every time you show up to practice, so you got to remember every single tool you ever use has two purposes. One is whatever the tool's going to do, and the other one is to program your subconscious with your intention of what it is you're looking for. So when Antoinette showed up and did the Brandon Bayes exercise, and that's actually a great exercise. I've forgotten about it, but it's a great one, right? Where you're going through your way, and she's like, well, this tumor is not telling me anything. I mean, I can't even see what color it is. Da, 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 da. The act of actually doing it is actually saying to your subconscious, I'm looking for evidence to support this practice. So every time you turn up, you basically are wiring new networks, I'm going to say of curiosity in your brain, which makes you more likely to see the obvious answer. Because this is the other thing. It's not actually what I wanted to say earlier, but this is leads into this one, is that it doesn't always have to be like a super clear revelation. It's literally what's obvious to you. Like what is obvious? And sometimes what's obvious is so simple that we go, it can't possibly be that. Okay. And like it can't possibly be that. So, and it's not actually even when you do these practices, like this exercise that Antoinette was talking about, you are basically also saying to your subconscious, I'm looking for the answer. Let's just say to the color of my tumor. That doesn't stop when you stop doing the exercise. It continues. It basically heightens your intuition. What it does is it programs a part of your brain called your reticular activating system. And your reticular activating system is looking for whatever you're paying attention to. So when I say, Antoinette, how many red Land Rover Defenders have you seen in the last 6 months? She'll be red Land Rover Defenders. And what is a Land Rover Defender? Okay. And I show her a picture. I say, this is a Land Rover Defender. Red ones are rare. I want you to look for red ones. And then 2 weeks later, I say to her, have you seen any red Land Rover Defenders? She's likely to say, actually, I saw 3. Or let's make it simpler, just red cars. When was the last time you saw a red car? Because most cars are white. Well, in South Africa, most cars are white. Okay, well, I want you to tell me how many red cars you see next week. Next week, when I ask her how many red cars, she'll be able to tell me more or less how many red cars, because your reticular activating system is the part of your brain that filters out things that are unnecessary to you. So when you start making a practice of finding what's necessary to you, what is the tumor trying to tell me, or the symptom trying to tell me, your reticular activating system is now starting to look for evidence to answer your question. And so you might not get the answer while you're in your prayer or while you're in your meditation or while you're doing the whatever, but you could get the answer while you're on the loo or in the shower or driving the car. You could get the answer from the lyrics in a song. It's usually obvious. Okay. So know that when you do an exercise, like if I say, do this Jin Shin Jitsu practice for this particular thing that you have, you get the benefit of doing the Jin Shin Jitsu practice, but you also get the benefit of getting your reticular activating system aligned with what's working and what isn't working. what's true for me now, and what, because if you do the treatment today, you are different than what you did when you were before you did the treatment. And so that intuitive hit thing carries on beyond the exercise. So this is really useful to know. Because I always used to think, well, I've got to be in like a certain state. I'm going to light the candle, do the ritual, blah, 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 and then if I get nothing, well, I got nothing. And then I realized, well, you know what? If I got nothing during the practice, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep my eye open for an answer to my question when I'm not doing the practice. And you know what?
Wow.
Weirdly enough, I started noticing the answers more clearly. So, one of the things that actually hampers us with this is we're, first of all, especially if you've got a diagnosis of something that's scary, right? You're terrified and you want this to go away tomorrow and you want it healed. Chip chop. First of all, that's probably not going to happen. Hate to break it to you, but that's probably not going to happen. Okay. It does happen. Miracles happen, but a lot of miracles take a little time. All right. So just because it takes a little time doesn't mean it's not a miracle, right? So, first of all, your anxiety is what wants you to have the answer immediately. Just recognize that. Because the more you have that and you don't recognize it, the more it's going to block the voice. So sometimes what needs to happen first, in fact, almost always, this is my recommendation, is what is true? Like, what do I have? In Antoinette's case, a galloping cancer, stage 4. How's that making me feel? Scaring the living daylights, terrified. I am terrified, swamped with anxiety. What do you,
Mhm.
what does that anxiety make you want to do? It makes it just want to go away. I want it gone. Okay, so can you see that none of that is, I want to sit and explore and like go into my, none of that, that's not, okay. So under those circumstances, it may be, I'm not surprised Antoinette couldn't find a color to her tumor, but that doesn't mean that she couldn't overcome that resistance. And that's the value of continuing the practice, even if you don't get an answer. Okay, because the more you do it, the more inclined your brain is to start getting the answer. And another thing is, if you can recognize the feeling and you can just acknowledge that this is the truth of how I feel. The
Mm.
truth is, I
Yeah.
don't want to do the work. I just wanted to go away. The truth is, I'm angry because this is not fair. Why is this happening to me? I've had all the green juice. I've said all the prayers, whatever. Just the truth of how you really feel. Most people bypass that step. And when we're not able to actually just even acknowledge the feeling, let alone allow ourselves to explore where's the feeling in my body? What does it feel like? What does it look like? You know, that, all right? That inability to do that, or the not wanting to do that because we just want it to go away. Normal. Just recognize that this is true. I'd like it to go away tomorrow. What are the chances of it going away tomorrow? Almost zero. Okay, so I'm going to do the best I can, and this might take a little time. So I'm going to acknowledge that terror, but I'm not going to allow the terror to stop me from taking the action that's true for me or that's obvious for me. So I'm just going to keep on doing the exercise, for example. Okay. And then the more you can do that, the more you dial down the noise. You don't take away the feeling, but you dial down the noise so that when you do the process, you're more likely to hear the answer, because the answer is not going to be in a scream. It's more likely going to be like a whisper. And so all that stuff that's causing resistance,
Mhm.
it's basically making a whole lot of background noise. Sometimes before we can get the answer, we have to just identify what's making the background noise. And honestly, in my experience with people who are sick, it's always the feeling. The feeling is one of the biggest things that's creating a lot of the background noise. So can we just then find a practice to help us feel the feelings? We've got those, right? We've had episodes about that, for example. And maybe what you do in the beginning is maybe that's your place to start. And the other thing is also just trust that you know where to start. Just start. Because one
Yeah,
of the, sorry, go, Antoinette, I'm going to stop.
no, it's I honestly, and I don't say this lightly, I say it as a person who's been through this journey again this year of nearly dying. is this the deep, deep gift in a very aggressive cancer or a chronic autoimmune disease or whatever happened to me this year? Is that it forces people like me. I don't naturally like to do daily practices and repetitive things and journaling. And I can tell you my resistance in the beginning to doing this visualization and the tapping and the affirmations and all of that. The resistance was massive, but you must have a very aggressive tumor at the top of your spine. Let me tell you, you're on the bathroom floor as broken as you can be. And you somehow push through that resistance. The other thing it does for you, this kind of illness, and I'm not saying everybody needs to end up on the bathroom floor with a terminal illness or an aggressive cancer. I mean, Loretta does all of this stuff and she's been sick, but some people have to get broken open. It's the human journey. So we don't also have to judge that. But the other thing it does, and we talked about this in the last episode on suffering, is it forces some level of surrender and handing it over. So, in fact, the very first thing I did was go to a kinesiologist. Because Loretta's talking about the panic and the fear, the terror. The terror for me of the chemo and the chemicals I hadn't touched for 32 years, not even an antibiotic. And now I must do chemo. The terror of that for me was even more scary than dying. And when you're in that state of extreme terror and denial, and why me in the beginning, it's almost impossible to do anything other than work with that. So I went to a kinesiologist. So you can also go to somebody outside of yourself, a trustworthy person who can uncover for you your body's message. And I got a very, very strong message, which I'm not going to share now because I've shared it before. It seemed counterintuitive, counter logical, ridiculous, but it was a very important starting point and turned out to define the rest of my life. The other thing I did was within weeks of this diagnosis, by the way, even though I had a very aggressive cancer, fast moving at the top of my spine, I still took 3 weeks to make decisions. I got a couple of opinions. You've always got more time than you think because you don't want to rush into something you're really going to regret. And I sat one day in front of my fire on the floor and I started chanting Hari Om because a friend of mine's a yoga teacher and she did a lot of chanting. And Hari Om apparently invokes the divine and the universal energy of Om to help you through suffering. And then I said to God, the quantum higher supreme power, what am I meant to do next? I've been doing everything people do when they get cancer. They go on raw foods, vegan, natural, green juice. I can't do any more of that. What do you want me to do? Literally. I had no idea what to do next. And my body said, you can't go to Gerson, you can't fast, you can't do green juices, you must do chemo. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But then when you start doing this kind of stuff, you've got to have the courage and the knowledge, which I'm going to give you in Loretta, that what comes may not be what you expect or what you want. The very, very first thing I got, and I couldn't deny it, you know when it's counterintuitive. People ask me, how do you know when it's intuition? If it's something you could never come up with yourself, like I was told, you know it's not from you, it's from your higher self, from God, whatever. And I got throw out every single belief system you have, every single one. All these spiritual eating. Oh, I thought I had it taped. All these wonderful philosophies and ways I was living. I was like, "Are you mad?" No, really. I'm like, that's terrifying. I'm anchorless, but it wouldn't go away. So I was okay. I'm gonna throw them all out. That meant I had to drop my absolutism towards never eating animals. I mean, I'm not going to tell you everything that unfolded after that, but I'm like, all right, if that's what you want me to do, I'll just be out there in the sea on this little boat in the waves, but you better start bringing in some other stuff again because I don't like being anchorless. I'm a control freak. So the interesting thing is, though, when you are willing to make inquiry or hand it over, that I had to surrender because I didn't know what to do next. And in that place of surrendering and inquiring and just making a commitment to try and help myself together with the chemo and the other healers, the energy healers, I didn't stop doing cannabis, medicinal cannabis or energy healers. I just did chemo as well. And then I helped myself. What started coming, as Loretta says, is suddenly somebody, you'll get a clip will come up on your feed, and it's like Dr. Lisa Rankin. I'd never heard of her. I heard her on a TEDx. I'm like, ah, geez, I needed to hear that. I get a Bruce Lipton clip. I'd already read all his books. Ha, I need to reprogram my subconscious. So it doesn't always happen in the moment, as Loretta says, but everything will start coming your way. But the most important thing I had to do, especially those of you that are very embedded in a self-help and spiritual and healthy eating path, I'm sorry, I have to say this straight, is you
100%.
have to filter out the outside voices in that world, especially, and the medical world, who are going to tell you how you need to heal yourself. And they're usually the people that have never had cancer. I had to switch my phone off for a month. I offended people because if one more person told me a vitamin C drip or Chris beats cancer or this is the protocol and this is going to heal you, you got to go and do that machine. And I was like, just get out of my space because I can't figure this out. And it's a danger that because you're so desperate, you just listen to some of this. And people, maybe vitamin C works for some people, but some people have sold their houses and thrown away all their money. So, yeah, I don't know if I need to say any more. There's so much I can say, but it's been a lifetime journey for me, this actually, and it's worth it. But if you're that sick, physically, mentally, whatever, you just need to ask some questions, show up to be committed to play a role, and hand it over and just start paying attention to what comes and just start doing something every single day. Loretta, I think I'm
Just
done for now.
Yeah, I just want to add, this is something I wanted to say earlier, but we've actually circled right back to it. And so Antoinette mentioned Louise Hay, for example. So I've got Louise Hay's little book here. It's not on my shelf now. I don't know where I've put it, but I've definitely got it, right? And you can look up your symptom and it tells you what the underlying thing is. And there are lots of books like that. There's some that are much, much more involved in that. And those are useful, but every single person is unique. And so that's exactly what Antoinette's just speaking to now about, some people get cured on Gerson. Some people die horrible deaths. Some people, vitamin C drips work really well for them. Some people, it absolutely doesn't. And so this is an individual journey. And so we can say, that, I don't know, autoimmune disease is very common in women, and it's people who don't have boundaries, and it's people pleasing. And then you go, oh, yeah, I know why I've got it. Actually, you
Yes.
don't. You've got a theme around maybe what you've got and what it could mean, but the rest of it is unique to you. And so
So
when
true.
you are in that place, as Antoinette just said, and I said as well, when you're in the early stages where you're overwhelmed, you might not be able to get these answers yourself. And so it's at that point where you do actually, Antoinette went to a kinesiologist, right? You might actually need someone to help you. I have a client who was referred to me by a colleague of mine. I'd never seen this lady before, and she had a recurrence of her cancer. And so the first time she had breast cancer, she had done the chemo and whatever else, radiation. I can't remember if she had the radiation. And so now the cancer came back, and her whole thing was she didn't want to do the chemo because in her mind it didn't work the first time. But I'm like, well, she was in remission for like 10 years. So I mean, I wouldn't have called that not work, but it's not my job to decide what's true for people or not. But she was really adamant about not doing the chemo. And my friend, who was her homeopath, said, you know what? Maybe Loretta can help you connect to what's true for you because that's what she does. And I had never done this on a first consult for people, just by the way. I had done this with people that I'd worked with, but I was like, well, you know what? Of course it'll work for her. What's the worst that can happen? She won't get an answer, right? And the process, I believe that the process will work. And so basically I cobbled together a combination of stuff that I had done with people a lot. And I said to her, listen, this is going to take at least an hour and a half because I don't actually know how long this is going to take. And I don't really know whether this is going to work, but you know what? It might. And it actually worked really well, because we got her to the point where she actually could connect to what was true for her, what was true, what was really true for her, beyond all the egoic you should and you must and da, 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 all of that. And what was true for her was to do the chemo. Now, from where, like Antoinette. And so what, and it wasn't just that, I mean, I'd learned this before, is that, you know what, I might have an idea of what, like from an alternative or a homeopathic point of view or a coach point of view, what's best for you. But can I tell you, no one knows what's best for you more than you. So when you do go
Exactly.
and get that help, this is a tip on what kind of help I think is going to be most useful for you. And this is my opinion. Not the kind of help where the person tells you what you need, but the
Mm-hmm.
kind of help where the person helps you find out what's true for you. So, like the kinesiologist used Antoinette's own body, asked the questions, muscle tested, and got the answer. And the answer that came for Antoinette was against the run of play based on what she believed. But on some level, after her 3 weeks or however long it took, she knew that that was true for her to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, is this the right answer? It's, is it true for me? Because there is no right answer. There is no one universal blanket right answer, because if there was, everyone would be healed. And you know what? That's not how it works. So when you are looking for the right help, my, I'm going to say it again. Find someone who can help you find the answers from you, and not someone who says, my protocol is the protocol, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
In fact, Loretta, I think if somebody says that to you, I would run a mile
Oh,
personally.
me too.
It's
I would have.
it took me a long journey to realize not only is everybody different, but at different moments in time, our body needs different things. When I was 23, my body needed homeopathy and natural. I cured myself for autoimmune on fasting, the Gerson type stuff. But at that point in time, at 56, boy, did I need that chemo, and I needed to start eating animal flesh again. Horror of horrors. But now I don't really eat, well, I didn't eat animal products this whole year. Now I'm having a little bit. We don't know, and it's very hard for us to access. Even now, I can't always access what I need right now because it might be different to yesterday. So you need to choose the right person. You need to be very discerning about who that person is. And one of the indicators that a person is wrong is anybody who tells you this is the way. Now, but you must know, of course, if you go to an oncologist or something, 99.9% of them are going to tell you you have to do chemo. So
Yes.
personally, I wouldn't argue with that kind of person. If that's intuitively like me, what you have to do, and Loretta's client, you go and do it. And the guy told me if you touch cannabis or any natural stuff, don't come back here. So I just didn't tell him until I was healed, and then we both had a little laugh about it. But be cautious if you're going to choose a practitioner like an oncologist who is going to tell you what to do. Just do it, but be very cautious if you're going to a person like Loretta or a coach or especially the alternative people. You know, they bash the medical industry all the time, Loretta. And one
No,
of
they
my
do.
learnings from this whole journey is how people brutalized me. Gary Ramsay said the same. He made a different decision to me, but he got some of his friends never spoke to him again because he didn't do the medical route. Some people I was involved with were so angry with me because I chose the medical route. And other people will never know what's right for you there and then. So if you're going to work with someone like Loretta or a practitioner that's going to help you heal from the inside out, please do your homework, get referrals. I don't know. If you're listening to us, ask us. And I mean, Loretta's amazing, and I would always recommend it, but she's got no ego in being the only person out there. Because as soon as there's that absolutism, I can tell you right now, like people say to me, Oh, I'm taking ivermectin now. I can't tell you how many people with cancer are throwing ivermectin into their bodies because they're absolutely convinced from online stuff that it's going to heal them. And the one woman is even getting healed from terminal cancer. And that could be placebo, I don't know. But would I put ivermectin in my body? Never. I mean, I know what it's going to do to my liver, but so we just have to be very cautious of not anything that's very, very absolute because absolutism is one of the things that makes us sick and it doesn't help us heal. Am I right? Although belief is a very strong thing. So
Yeah,
to
but
be
belief is if you absolute in this is good and this is bad, then you narrow your choices. You take all the gray out.
exactly.
So if I
Yeah.
go, it's got to be alternative medicine, and it can't only just not just any alternative medicine. It's got to be homeopathy and glutathione drips and I don't know, chelation therapy. Um, then it removes every other option for you. Or if it's like it can only be oncology and or chemo and radiation, it removes every other option for you. But if you're like, well, you know what, there are all these options. I don't know which one is best for me. So you know what, start with the first step. So like this client who came to see me, she wasn't a client of mine. She had this one session, and the one session was you need to do the oncology, you need to do the chemo. So the next thing she did was she went to the oncologist and said, I'm ready to do the chemo. And once she had made that decision,
Hmm.
that quieted her mind. And then she had another call with me and said, you know what, can I work with you at the same time as I'm having the chemo? And I said, of course you can
Exactly.
work with me at the same time as you're having the chemo. And then instead of, because I mean, I don't really do that much of the herbal and the supplementation advice anymore. She saw my friend, the one who referred her. She said, well, I'm just going to get my herbal whatever stuff from her. And I was like, yeah, that's a really great idea because then I don't have to worry about that stuff because that's not really what I want to focus on. And so she ended up having a team. She had three people eventually, but she didn't get all three of them at once.
Yeah.
She didn't do everything at one go. The first thing was, what's the most important thing for me to do first? Chemo. And then once you've ticked the first box and you've taken that first step, what it does is you already start feeling empowered because now you feel like you've made a decision. The thing that is most energy draining is when you can't decide on anything. Okay. So
Yeah.
if you find yourself stuck in that place where you actually cannot, you need help, but not someone who's going to tell you what to do, someone who's going to help you find what's true for you to do.
Yeah, and it's multifaceted, Loretta. It's very, very exceptionally rare that healing is one thing, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual healing. And if anybody doesn't know the Radical Remission book by Dr. Kelly Turner or the Radical Remission podcast, it's really worth it. It wasn't out yet when I had cancer, and I only found it a few years afterwards. But Dr. Kelly Turner did proper research on people who had recovered from the incurable, mostly cancer. They were meant to live 2 or 3 months and they were still alive 15 years later. She was at a proper university, a doctor, did proper research, and she came up with 10 factors. And food and supplements are only part of it. For some people, like me, it
Because
was a
the
very,
10.
it 10
Mm.
factors, and only three of them are physical, as in food, supplements, exercise. The rest are psychological, spiritual, mental, emotional. So and we don't always need all of them, and it's very overwhelming, as she says in that book. It's very overwhelming when people go, how the hell am I going to do 10 things? As Loretta just said, you don't have to. Just have to start at the beginning. And if you have to do chemo, you got to go and do that. And then just see what comes, but keep on asking the questions, keep on showing up, and just do that every day, and everything you need will come. And it might change the course of your life for the better, but it might not be what you want to do because I think people, if we repetitively going into being sick and having symptoms, there's something on an unconscious level or spiritual level that or it could be as simple as or as hard as a relationship we need to leave or a job we need to change.
Yeah.
You have no idea on radical remission how many people have to leave their careers or manage their relationships better. So maybe Loretta, I don't know, I think we've covered a lot today, but this is a exciting, very multifaceted journey that will heal your whole life. And it's not always easy though, and it requires quite a bit of courage and commitment. So that's why we bring what we bring. We do all of this at no cost, and why there's and you're blessed that there are amazing people like Loretta that can guide you through this. So thank you for listening. Please share this because this is actually a very, very important conversation we've had. Loretta, do you want to?
No, I think you've summed it up really accurately. I just want to say one last thing is that if you can't show up, then that's sometimes the value in having someone that you are accountable to.
Yes.
So you don't want the person you work with to force you to do their way, but
No,
having someone that you're accountable to, not so that like they're checking your homework, but like that you show up for once a week, for example. It means that in
absolutely,
that one
Loretta.
session in the week, you can get a whole lot of things done so that you
Yes.
can actually have when on the days where you're not able to or you're not actually doing your practice or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
It's always someone to help you pick up the thread and maintain the thread and be able to hold the outcome, that vision for your health.
Yeah.
Don't
I think it's
underestimate that because
amazing.
that
If
I
I
think is
had met you and I knew you, yeah, you can't underestimate getting the right
underestimate that.
help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really
Sorry, I
important.
interrupted
So
you,
yeah,
Loretta.
no, 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 absolutely. So thank you again, as Antoinette said, for listening. If you found this useful, please share this. Please send people the link directly. It always works better, particularly if you send it to their phone. That's how it works for me. If you tell me to listen to a podcast, I like, yeah, that's great, but then I've got to look for it. If you send me the link, it's in my WhatsApp, right? It's right there. There's a notification. I just click the link and boom, it ends up in my ear. So if you can do that with anyone that you think might benefit from this, we would be very, very grateful. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, bye, Loretta. Thanks for a great conversation.